Hi there, it's Nikki from All About the Yarn, and I am here today to talk to you about our Sunray Shawl knit along, which is starting this Saturday, the 18th of January 2025. If you want to join in, you still can. You might even get it in time for the launch day if you place an order by tomorrow, Thursday the 16th, and do that first class. I will do my absolute best to get it to you before Saturday, but if you've already ordered, then that beautiful yarn is on its way to you. I am actually here though to talk about swatching. So when we did our last knit along, which was the Ash Slipover knit along, there was a lot of conversation about swatching and whether it's worth it. And you'll be surprised to hear I think it is. And it's important particularly for anything where the fit matters. So a jumper or a slipover as we were doing, then of course you want it to fit to the measurements you've chosen. So you would base that maybe on your bust measurements or depending on what the pattern recommends, and you've taken the time to figure that out. So you need to make sure that your tension matches that recommended in the pattern so that your chosen size is going to come out as you expect it. For this particular shawl, I would say that I'm going to go so far to say that the gauge is less important. It's less important than on a garment. But let me tell you why I think it still matters. So this particular pattern, it's got quite a short set of instructions that you just repeat over and over, and it starts in the centre back, and then you're sort of building, going sort of side to side like this, building a triangle that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so you can just stop when you run out of yarn, or when you nearly run out of yarn, because you need to leave enough for the cast off, and Eula covers that in the pattern. So theoretically, it doesn't matter what your gauge is because you're just going to keep going. So, I mean, most designers, and I would think Eula has done this, would do a number of swatches on different needle sizes before they kind of go ahead with designing the project. And so for a shawl, Eula will have wanted to, she'll have probably selected, oh, I like that stitch pattern, or I've got this idea for a stitch pattern, and I just want to try it on a few different needle sizes to see which of those I like best as a fabric for a shawl. So you'll want a certain amount of drape, but she will have also taken into account the sort of texture she wants from the stitch pattern. So this has got, in fact, oh, sorry, grab my, there we go, grab a picture of it. You can see it's a garter stitch pattern basically, and there's a little bit of moss stitch at the top, and so it's actually quite a dense texture that you'll get from that, as opposed to say just a stocking stitch or even a lace pattern, something like that. So it's already quite a structured so it's good squishiness. So if you are knitting really, really loose, you could lose some of that structure and lose some of the squishiness. If you are knitting really, really tight, it could come out really, really dense. It's already quite a dense stitch pattern. So these are the kind of things that the designer will be taking into consideration. So if you want it to come out how you intended it, then it's best to try and get gauge. It's also a matter of personal preference. Maybe you do want it to have that bit more squishiness and denseness and structure than actually originally intended. Or maybe you would like it much, much more floppy and drapey. So if you swatch, you will know what sort of fabric you're going to end up with. So it's still a really good idea to swatch. I am going to be really, really nice and say you can cast on straight away. And the reason I say that is because actually it starts off small. And because of the way it sort of starts in the centre and then grows outwards all the time. So actually this is ideal for treating as a little swatch. And we can even leave it on the cable, the needle cable, and just carefully, I mean, you can leave your needle tip soaking out, sticking out, or I've got interchangeables here, I'll just pop these off. Particularly if you've got wooden tips, I'd be really, really careful, but you can just let the knitting go into your wool soak and just soak that, and then as per usual carefully lift it out, squeeze out the water, don't wring it out, and then you can wrap it in a towel and jump in it, whatever you need to do. And then you can lay this out flat to dry. or you could even pin it slightly if you intend on sort of stretching out and pinning slightly the finished shawl, then you could do that. So, and then leave it to dry and then check your gauge. So it's a way that you can kind of get going, check your gauge. If you're happy, just carry on as you were. And actually, if you think, oh no, that's coming out too firm, or the opposite, too loose, then you could just pull the whole out and start again. The other thing, of course, is that if you are knitting on the tighter side, then it's going to take more knitting to use up all of your yarn, and to get to that larger size of shawl. So if you happen to be on the tighter side and you just think, well, it doesn't matter, gauge doesn't matter, well, then you're going to be knitting for longer. It's going to take you longer to use up all your yarn. So you might just want to take that into account as well. But really, it doesn't matter too much. And as long as you're in the ballpark, because we just keep going until we've used up the yarn, I'm not going to be as naggy about it as I was last time. I wasn't naggy. As I said last time, I am not the knitting police. I'm not here to tell you you have to do a swatch, but I do believe it's always a useful exercise. So there we go. If you want to swatch, I think you should swatch, then that's a really nice way to do it, because we can just cast on, get going with the knitting, and then, as I said, you know, just check it before we get too far into it. And I hope to see you at my swatch party for participants on the 18th of January.